In the quiet depths of space, where the stars twinkle slowly and predictably, there drifts a small, unremarkable spacecraft called the Serenity's Edge. The ship moves through the cosmos at a leisurely pace, neither hurrying toward any particular destination nor fleeing from anything urgent. It simply exists in the gentle embrace of the universe, following the ancient paths that countless other vessels have traveled before it. Aboard this peaceful craft live 3 aliens whose names translate roughly to Zephyr, Mist, and Gentle. They are not explorers in the traditional sense, nor are they on any grand mission to save their world or discover new civilizations. Instead, they spend their days engaged in the simple, quiet activities that bring them comfort and contentment. Their species, known as the Vorthons, are naturally calm beings who find great pleasure in the mundane rhythms of daily life. This morning, if morning has any meaning in the endless expanse of space, Zephyr awakens slowly in their sleeping chamber. The chamber is painted in soft shades of blue and gray, colors that remind the Vorthons of the peaceful skies of their home planet. The walls are smooth and slightly curved, creating a cocoon-like feeling that helps the occupant feel safe and secure. Zephyr stretches their 4 slender arms, each movement deliberate and unhurried. Their skin has a gentle, pearl-like sheen that shifts subtly in the soft lighting of the chamber. The lighting system on the Serenity's Edge is designed to mimic the natural rhythms that the Vorthons evolved with over millions of years. It begins dim and slowly, almost imperceptibly, grows brighter over the course of what they call a cycle. The brightness never becomes harsh or jarring. Instead, it reaches a comfortable level that feels like standing in the shade of a tree on a pleasantly overcast day. Zephyr sits up slowly, taking time to let their mind adjust to wakefulness. They have no pressing schedule to keep, no urgent tasks demanding immediate attention. This is how the Vorthons prefer to live, in harmony with their natural rhythms, allowing each moment to unfold at its own pace. They swing their legs over the side of their sleeping platform, feeling the cool, smooth metal against their skin. The metal has been treated with a special coating that always maintains a comfortable temperature, never too hot or too cold. After sitting quietly for several minutes, simply breathing and listening to the gentle hum of the ship's systems, Zephyr stands and walks to the small cleansing station in the corner of their chamber, where they perform their species' equivalent of washing. The process involves standing under a gentle mist of warm, scented vapor that removes any impurities from their skin and leaves them feeling refreshed. The vapor smells faintly of lavender and mint, scents that the ship's systems have synthesized to approximate the pleasant aromas of the Vorthon homeworld.
The cleansing process takes exactly 7 minutes, no more and no less. This is not because of any technological limitation, but because the Vorthons have found through generations of experience that 7 minutes is the optimal amount of time for both physical cleansing and mental preparation for the day ahead. During these 7 minutes, Zephyr stands perfectly still, letting the warm mist envelope them while focusing on their breathing. They inhale slowly through their respiratory openings, hold the breath for a count of 4, then exhale even more slowly. This breathing pattern, repeated throughout the cleansing process, helps to center their mind and prepare them for whatever quiet activities the day might bring. When the cleansing cycle is complete, Zephyr dries themselves with a soft, absorbent cloth that feels like the finest silk. The cloth is a pale green color that has faded slightly over the years of use, giving it a lived-in, comfortable appearance that Zephyr finds more appealing than anything bright and new would be. They fold the cloth carefully and place it back in its designated spot, ensuring that everything in their chamber remains neat and organized. Zephyr then selects their clothing for the day from a small wardrobe built into the wall of their chamber. The Vorthons wear simple, loose-fitting garments made from a material that feels like a cross between cotton and silk. Today, Zephyr chooses a tunic in a soft shade of gray-blue, the same color as distant storm clouds. The tunic has long sleeves that extend to cover most of their arms, and it falls to just below their knees. Over this, they put on a lighter outer garment, almost like a vest, in a complementary shade of pale lavender. The process of dressing is unhurried and meditative. Zephyr takes care to smooth each garment properly, ensuring that there are no wrinkles or uncomfortable bunching of fabric. They appreciate the way the soft material feels against their skin and the way the colors work together to create a subtle, harmonious appearance. The Vorthons have never been particularly concerned with fashion or making bold statements with their clothing choices. Instead, they prefer garments that are comfortable, practical, and pleasing in a quiet, understated way. Once dressed, Zephyr leaves their sleeping chamber and walks down the main corridor of the ship toward the common area where they will meet Mist and Gentle for their morning meal. The corridor is wide enough for two Vorthons to walk side by side comfortably, though this rarely happens as the ship's inhabitants tend to move about at different times, each following their own natural rhythms. The walls of the corridor are lined with soft, glowing panels that provide even, gentle illumination without creating any harsh shadows or bright spots. As Zephyr walks, their soft-soled shoes make almost no sound against the metal flooring. The shoes are designed for comfort rather than durability, made from the same silk-like material as their clothing. The soles are thin enough that Zephyr can feel the slight texture of the floor through them, providing a subtle sensory experience that helps them feel connected to their environment. The corridor curves gently as it follows the contours of the ship's hull. Along its length, there are several more circular windows like the one in Zephyr's chamber. Through these windows, the stars appear to move slowly past as the ship continues its unhurried journey through space. Zephyr pauses at one of these windows to observe a particularly interesting cluster of stars. The cluster contains perhaps 20 or 30 individual stars of varying brightness, arranged in what seems like a loose spiral pattern. Zephyr has noticed this cluster before, but today it appears slightly different. Perhaps the ship's angle has changed, or maybe the relative positions of the stars have shifted imperceptibly since the last time they looked. Spending a few minutes studying the star cluster, Zephyr tries to identify each individual star and remember its position relative to the others. This is not a scientific exercise, but rather a form of mental relaxation that the Vorthons find soothing. There is something deeply satisfying about observing patterns in nature, even when those patterns are as vast and distant as the arrangement of stars in space. One star in particular catches Zephyr's attention. It is smaller and dimmer than the others in the cluster, positioned near what might be considered the outer edge of the spiral formation. The star has a slightly reddish tint that makes it stand out from its more purely white neighbors. Zephyr decides to name this star Quiet Ember, both for its color and for the gentle, steady way it glows in the darkness.
After contemplating the star cluster for several more minutes, Zephyr continues down the corridor toward the common area. The journey takes another 5 minutes of unhurried walking, during which Zephyr encounters no one else. This is typical for this time of cycle, as each of the ship's 3 inhabitants tends to wake and begin their day at slightly different times. Zephyr is usually the first to rise, followed by Mist about an hour later, and then Gentle sometime after that.
The common area is the largest room on the ship, though by most standards it would still be considered quite cozy. It serves multiple purposes: dining area, recreation space, and general gathering place for the ship's inhabitants. The room is circular, with a domed ceiling that can display images of the outside space, or, alternatively, scenes from the Vorthen homeworld. Currently, the ceiling shows a peaceful view of space, with stars slowly drifting across the dome as the ship moves through the cosmos. In the center of the room is a low, round table surrounded by comfortable cushions where the three Vorthens take their meals and spend time together. The table is made from a wood-like material that has been polished to a soft gleam, and its surface is marked with the gentle wear patterns that come from years of daily use. Around the edges of the room are various pieces of furniture and equipment: comfortable seating areas, a small library of data crystals containing literature and music from their homeworld, and the food preparation station. Zephyr walks to the food preparation station, which is built into one wall of the common area. The station is elegantly simple in design, containing all the necessary equipment for preparing the basic meals that sustain the Vorthens during their long journey. The food itself is grown in a small hydroponic garden located in another part of the ship, supplemented by preserved items from their home planet. Today, Zephyr decides to prepare a simple breakfast of warm grain porridge topped with dried fruit and a mild herbal tea. The grain is similar to oats or rice, with a slightly nutty flavor and a satisfying texture that becomes creamy when cooked slowly with water. Zephyr measures out 2 portions of grain into a small cooking vessel, then adds the appropriate amount of water. The cooking process will take about 20 minutes, during which time Zephyr can attend to other small preparations. While the grain cooks, Zephyr selects dried fruit from several containers stored in the food preparation area. There are dried berries that taste faintly of honey, small pieces of dried fruit that resemble apricots but with a more subtle floral flavor, and tiny dried seeds that add a pleasant crunch and a mild spicy taste. Zephyr chooses a small amount of each type, placing them in a shallow bowl where they can be easily sprinkled over the finished porridge. The tea preparation requires even more patience and attention. Zephyr selects a blend of herbs that includes something similar to chamomile, along with leaves from a plant that grows only on their homeworld and produces a gentle, slightly sweet flavor. The herbs are measured carefully and placed in a special infusion device that will steep them in hot water for exactly the right amount of time to extract the optimal flavor without any bitterness. As the porridge cooks and the tea steeps, Zephyr arranges 2 place settings at the round table. They select bowls and cups from a collection of simple, elegantly shaped ceramic pieces that were crafted on the Vorthen homeworld. Each piece is slightly different from the others, showing the individual marks and variations that come from handmade items, but they all share a similar aesthetic of clean lines and pleasing proportions. The bowls are a warm cream color, with subtle variations in tone that create an almost imperceptible pattern across their surfaces. The cups are slightly larger than what humans might use for tea, designed to be held comfortably in the Vorthen's long-fingered hands. Like the bowls, they have a simple, unadorned appearance that emphasizes function and comfort over decoration. Zephyr places the bowls and cups carefully on the table, along with simple utensils made from the same wood-like material as the table itself. Each utensil has been worn smooth by years of use, and they feel comfortable and familiar in Zephyr's hands. There is something deeply satisfying about using tools and implements that have been shaped not only by their original crafting, but also by the countless meals and daily rituals they have participated in over the years. The porridge finishes cooking just as Mist enters the common area. Mist moves even more slowly and deliberately than Zephyr, if such a thing is possible. Their skin has a slightly different hue, more silver than pearl, and their clothing today consists of a flowing robe in a shade of pale yellow that reminds Zephyr of early morning sunlight filtering through Mist, quite appropriate for Mist's name. "Good cycle, Zephyr," Mist says in their soft musical voice. The Vorthon language, when translated, always sounds slightly formal and courteous, even in casual conversation between close friends. "Good cycle, Mist," Zephyr replies, ladling the warm porridge into the two bowls. "I trust your sleep period was restorative?" "Indeed it was," Mist responds, settling onto one of the cushions around the table. "I dreamed of the crystal caves near my birthplace on the homeworld. The dreams were filled with the sound of water dripping slowly from the cave ceiling into still pools." This is typical conversation for the Vorthons. They rarely discuss anything urgent or pressing, preferring instead to share pleasant memories, gentle observations about their current experiences, or quiet reflections on beauty they have noticed in their surroundings. The pace of their conversation matches the pace of everything else in their lives, unhurried, thoughtful, and peaceful. Zephyr pours the herbal tea into their cups, watching as the pale golden liquid steams gently in the slightly cool air of the common area. The tea has a delicate, almost floral aroma that mingles pleasantly with the nutty scent of the porridge. They sit down across from Mist, and they begin their meal in comfortable silence. The porridge is exactly the right temperature, warm enough to be comforting, but not so hot as to require any hurried cooling. Zephyr adds a small sprinkling of the dried fruits and seeds to their bowl, stirring them gently into the creamy grain. Each spoonful provides a slightly different combination of flavors and textures: the smooth, nutty base of the porridge, the sweet burst of dried berries, the more complex flavor of the apricot-like fruit, and the tiny pops of spice from the seeds.
Mist eats even more slowly than Zephyr, taking time to appreciate each small bite. This is not due to any difficulty with eating, but simply because the Vorthons believe that meals should be savored rather than consumed quickly. They have learned over their long evolutionary history that taking time to properly appreciate food leads to better digestion, more complete nutrition absorption, and greater overall satisfaction with smaller portions. "The grain harvest from our hydroponic garden continues to be excellent," Mist observes after several minutes of quiet eating. "The plants seem to thrive in the controlled environment of the ship." "Yes," Zephyr agrees. "I checked on the garden yesterday during my rest period. The grain stalks are tall and healthy, and the fruit vines are beginning to show new growth. In perhaps 30 or 40 cycles, we should have fresh fruit to supplement our dried stores." They continue eating and drinking their tea while discussing the small details of their onboard garden. The conversation covers topics such as the optimal water temperature for the various plants, the subtle adjustments they have made to the lighting cycles to better simulate the seasonal changes the plants would experience on their homeworld, and their observations about which varieties of seeds seem to germinate most reliably in the ship's environment. This type of conversation might seem mundane to other species, but for the Vorthons, it represents the height of pleasant social interaction. They find great satisfaction in sharing detailed observations about the small systems and processes that make their daily lives possible. Each plant in their garden, each piece of equipment on their ship, each routine they follow is a source of gentle interest and ongoing refinement. As they finish their breakfast, Gentle joins them in the common area. Gentle is the tallest of the three Vorthons, with skin that has a faint greenish tint that becomes more pronounced when they are particularly relaxed or content. Today they wear a simple tunic and leggings in various shades of brown and tan, colors that complement their natural skin tone beautifully. "Good cycle, friends," Gentle says, settling onto a cushion at the table. "I apologize for my tardiness. I spent additional time this cycle observing the stellar formations visible from my chamber window." "There is no need for apology. We have only just finished our nourishment, and there is still warm porridge available if you would like some." "That would be most welcome," Gentle says gratefully. "I noticed during my observations that we are approaching a region of space where the star density is somewhat higher than what we have been traveling through. The view should become even more interesting over the next several cycles." Zephyr prepares a bowl of porridge for Gentle, taking the same care and preparation and presentation as they had with their own meal. While Gentle eats, Mist and Zephyr clean their dishes in the small washing station adjacent to the food preparation area. The washing process involves running the ceramic pieces under warm water while gently scrubbing them with a soft brush made from plant fibers. The soap they use is made from natural ingredients and has a very mild, clean scent that doesn't overwhelm the other subtle aromas in the common area. After washing, each piece is dried with a soft cloth and returned to its designated storage space. The Vorthons have developed systems for organizing all of their possessions that prioritize efficiency and cleanliness while also ensuring that frequently used items are easily accessible. Every bowl, cup, utensil, and cooking implement has a specific place where it belongs, and returning items to these places after use is as much a part of the meal as the eating itself. With breakfast complete and the cleaning finished, the three Vorthons settle into their daily activities. These activities are not assigned or scheduled in any formal way. Instead, each individual follows their own inclinations and interests, contributing to the overall functioning of the ship and the well-being of the group in whatever way feels most natural to them. Today, Zephyr decides to spend some time in the ship's small library, reading from one of the data crystals that contains poetry from their homeworld. The library occupies a corner of the common area and consists of comfortable seating arranged around a device that can project text and images from the crystal storage media. The seating includes several cushioned chairs and a low couch, all upholstered in soft fabrics in shades of blue and green. Zephyr selects a crystal containing the collected works of a poet named Serene Whisper, who lived several hundred years ago and is known for verse that captures the quiet beauty of everyday moments. The poems are written in traditional Vorthon style, which emphasizes subtle imagery and gentle rhythms, rather than dramatic emotions or complex metaphors. Reading these poems is like taking a slow walk through a peaceful garden, with each verse revealing small details and quiet pleasures. The first poem Zephyr reads is called Morning Dew on Garden Stones, and it describes the way water droplets form on smooth rocks during the cool hours before dawn. The poet's words paint a picture of perfect stillness, where the only movement is the gradual accumulation of moisture from the air and the slow brightening of the sky as the sun approaches the horizon. Reading each line slowly, letting the images form clearly in her mind before moving on to the next verse. Meanwhile, Mist has gone to check on the hydroponic garden, which is located in a dedicated chamber toward the rear of the ship. The garden chamber is filled with carefully controlled light from panels that simulate the spectrum and intensity of their home star. The air in the chamber is kept at optimal temperature and humidity for plant growth, and it carries the fresh green sense of growing things. The garden itself is arranged in neat rows of growing beds, each containing different types of plants at various stages of development. There are grains, similar to wheat and rice, root vegetables that resemble carrots and potatoes, leafy greens for fresh eating, and climbing vines that produce small, sweet fruits. Each bed is equipped with its own watering and nutrient delivery system, but Mist still prefers to check each plant individually, looking for signs of health or any problems that might need attention. Today, Mist notices that one of the grain plants has developed a small brown spot on one of its lower leaves. This is not necessarily cause for alarm, as plants sometimes develop minor blemishes that resolve themselves, but it is worth monitoring. Mist makes a note in the garden log, a simple record-keeping system that tracks the health and development of all the plants over time. The log includes information about watering schedules, harvest dates, and any unusual observations. After examining the grain beds, Mist moves on to check the fruit vines. These plants climb up vertical supports and are beginning to show small flower buds that will eventually develop into the sweet fruits the Vorthons enjoy. The buds are tiny and green, barely visible unless one looks closely, but Mist can see that they are developing normally. In perhaps 30 or 40 cycles, the buds will open into small white flowers, and if pollination is successful, fruits will begin to form. The pollination process on the ship is handled manually, since there are no natural pollinators like insects available in space. When the flowers open, Mist will use a small, soft brush to transfer pollen from the male parts of the flowers to the female parts, ensuring that fruit will develop. This is a delicate process that requires patience and attention to detail, but Mist finds it deeply satisfying to participate in the reproductive cycle of the plants.
While Mist tends the garden and Zephyr reads poetry, Gentle has decided to perform routine maintenance on one of the ship's navigation systems. This work takes place in a small technical chamber filled with various monitoring and control devices. The navigation system is one of several redundant systems that keep the ship on its planned course through space, and while it rarely requires major repairs, it does benefit from regular cleaning and calibration. Gentle's work today involves removing dust and debris from sensitive optical components and adjusting the calibration of sensors that detect the position of nearby stars. This work requires extreme precision and patience, as even tiny errors could eventually cause the ship to drift off course. However, Gentle finds this type of detailed technical work relaxing rather than stressful. There is something deeply satisfying about working with precise instruments and ensuring that complex systems continue to function properly. The optical components are cleaned using specialized tools and solutions that remove any contamination without damaging the delicate surfaces. Each component must be handled carefully and cleaned in a specific sequence to avoid accidentally introducing new contamination during the cleaning process. Gentle works slowly and methodically, taking breaks between components to rest their eyes and hands. The sensor calibration involves comparing the readings from the ship's instruments with the known positions of several reference stars. This process requires Gentle to take precise measurements and make small adjustments to ensure that the ship's understanding of its position and orientation in space remains accurate. The adjustments are made using fine controls that require gentle pressure and careful observation of the resulting changes in the instrument readings. As the day progresses, the three Vorthons continue with their individual activities, occasionally coming together in the common area to share observations or simply to enjoy each other's company. Around what might be called midday, they gather for a light meal consisting of fresh greens from the garden, a mild soup made from root vegetables, and more of the herbal tea they had enjoyed at breakfast. The meal preparation is shared among all three inhabitants, with each contributing according to their inclinations. Zephyr prepares the soup, carefully chopping the root vegetables into uniform pieces and simmering them slowly with aromatic herbs. Mist harvests and washes the fresh greens, selecting the most tender leaves and arranging them attractively in a large serving bowl. Gentle sets the table and prepares the tea, taking the same careful approach to the brewing process that Zephyr had used earlier in the day. Their midday conversation focuses on the small details of their morning activities. Zephyr shares a particularly beautiful passage from one of the poems they read, describing the way sunlight filters through the leaves of a tree and creates patterns of light and shadow on the ground below. Mist reports on the progress of the plants in the garden, including the small brown spot they noticed on the grain plant and their plans for monitoring its development. Gentle describes the satisfaction of completing the navigation system maintenance and the precision required to properly calibrate the stellar position sensors. After their meal, they spend some time together in comfortable silence, each engaged in quiet individual activities while remaining in the common area. Zephyr continues reading poetry, occasionally sharing a particularly lovely verse with the others. Mist works on a small piece of textile art, creating intricate patterns by weaving together threads of different colors and textures. Gentle sketches detailed diagrams of the ship's various systems, both as a reference for future maintenance work and as an aesthetic exercise. The textile work that Mist is engaged in is typical of Vorthon craftsmanship.
Rather than creating large, dramatic pieces, they prefer to work on small, intricate items that require patience and attention to detail. Today's project is a small wall hanging that will eventually display an abstract pattern reminiscent of the way light reflects off water. The work progresses slowly, with each thread carefully selected and positioned before being woven into the growing design. Gentle sketching work serves both practical and artistic purposes. The diagrams they create are accurate enough to be useful for maintenance and repair work, but they also pay careful attention to the aesthetic qualities of line, proportion, and composition. The result is technical documentation that is also pleasing to look at, reflecting the Vorthen belief that functional items should also be beautiful whenever possible. As the afternoon hours pass, the ship continues its slow journey through space, following trajectories calculated long ago to take them through regions of particular stellar beauty. The Vorthens are not traveling to any specific destination. Rather, their journey is an end in itself, an opportunity to experience the vastness and wonder of the universe at a pace that allows them to appreciate each moment fully. From time to time, one of them will look up from their activity to gaze out one of the windows at the stars passing slowly by. The star field has changed gradually since morning, with new constellations becoming visible while others drift out of view. These changes happen so slowly that they are barely perceptible from moment to moment, but over the course of several hours, the differences become apparent to the careful observer. Zephyr notices that Steady Friend, the bright yellow star they had observed from their chamber window that morning, is now visible through one of the common area windows, though from a slightly different angle. The star appears to have the same comforting, consistent brightness as before, providing a reassuring sense of continuity as the ship moves through the changing starfield. As the day continues, the three Vorthens maintain their peaceful routine of individual activities, punctuated by gentle social interaction. There are no deadlines to meet, no crises to resolve, and no urgent decisions to make. This absence of stress and pressure allows them to live in harmony with their natural rhythms, following their inclinations and interests without the need to rush or compromise their well-being for the sake of external demands. Around what might be called late afternoon, Mist suggests that they prepare an evening meal together. This suggestion is met with quiet enthusiasm by Zephyr and Gentle, who set aside their current activities to join in the food preparation. The evening meal is traditionally the most elaborate of the day, though by most standards it would still be considered quite simple.
Tonight's menu includes a grain dish similar to pilaf, prepared with vegetables from the garden and seasoned with herbs that have been grown aboard the ship. There will also be a protein dish made from preserved ingredients brought from their homeworld and a sweet dessert featuring dried fruits and nuts. The preparation of this meal will require about 2 hours, but this time is viewed as an enjoyable part of the dining experience rather than a chore to be completed quickly. The grain dish begins with carefully washing and sorting the grain to remove any imperfections or debris. This process is meditative in its repetition, with each grain examined individually before being approved for cooking. The grain is then toasted briefly in a dry pan to enhance its natural nutty flavor, filling the common area with a warm, appetizing aroma. While the grain toasts, vegetables are prepared with equal care. Root vegetables are peeled and cut into precise, uniform pieces. Leafy greens are washed multiple times to ensure they are completely clean, then chopped finely. Each type of vegetable will be added to the grain dish at a different time during the cooking process to ensure that everything finishes at the optimal texture and flavor. The protein dish requires rehydrating preserved ingredients that have been stored in sealed containers since the beginning of their journey. These ingredients must be soaked in warm water for exactly the right amount of time to restore their proper texture without becoming mushy. The soaking process is timed carefully, with the ingredients checked at regular intervals to monitor their progress. While the various components of the meal prepare, the three Vorthons work together in harmonious coordination. They move around the food preparation area with practiced efficiency, each knowing instinctively when to step aside to allow another access to a particular workspace or tool. Conversation during cooking is minimal, as they are all focused on their tasks, but the atmosphere is companionable and relaxed. The sweet dessert is perhaps the most complex part of the meal, requiring the careful preparation of a light, custard-like base infused with aromatic spices. The spices must be heated gently to release their essential oils without becoming bitter, then strained out of the mixture before the base is allowed to set. The dried fruits and nuts that will top the dessert are chopped finely and arranged in attractive patterns on the surface of each serving. As the various dishes near completion, the common area fills with the mingled aromas of the different foods. The nutty scent of the grain dish combines with the fresh green smell of the vegetables and the more complex, savory aroma of the protein dish. Underlying these food scents is the subtle floral fragrance of the spices used in the dessert, creating an overall olfactory experience that is both appetizing and calming. The table is set with the same care that was taken with the morning and midday meals, but with additional touches appropriate for the day's main meal. The ceramic dishes are arranged precisely, with each element of the place setting positioned at exactly the right distance from the others. Small bowls for the various dishes are arranged in the center of the table, where they can be easily reached by all three diners. As they sit down to eat, the three Vorthons take a moment to appreciate the visual presentation of their meal. The grain dish has taken on a golden color from the toasting process, and the vegetables provide bright accents of green and orange throughout the mixture. The protein dish has a rich brown color and a glossy appearance from the sauce that has been prepared to accompany it. The dessert cups show the careful arrangement of chopped fruits and nuts on their pale, smooth surfaces. The meal begins with each person serving themselves small portions of each dish. The Vorthons believe in eating moderate quantities of high-quality food, preferring to savor each bite rather than to eat large amounts quickly. This approach to dining allows them to appreciate the subtle flavors and textures that might be missed in hurried eating. Conversation during the evening meal tends to be more extensive than at breakfast or the midday meal, as this is when the Vorthons traditionally share their thoughts and observations about the day's experiences. Tonight, they discuss the changes they've observed in the star field outside their windows, comparing their individual observations and noting particularly interesting stellar formations. Zephyr describes a double star system they noticed during an afternoon break from reading. Two stars that orbit so closely around each other that they appear to dance together in space. The orbital period is too long to observe directly, but mathematical calculations suggest that the stars complete one orbit around their common center of gravity every few hundred years. Mist shares observations about subtle changes in the ship's internal environment, including variations in air temperature and humidity that correspond to the operation cycles of various life support systems. These variations are within acceptable ranges and pose no threat to the inhabitants, but Mist finds it interesting to track the patterns and understand how the ship's systems interact with each other. Gentle reports on the navigation system maintenance they performed earlier, noting that all systems are functioning within normal parameters and that their course through space remains accurate. They also mention observing some interesting electromagnetic phenomena through the ship's sensors, possibly the result of charged particles interacting with magnetic fields around distant stellar objects. As they eat and converse, the lighting in the common area gradually dims to match the natural rhythm of day and night that the Vorthons evolved to follow. This transition happens so slowly that it is barely noticeable from moment to moment,
But over the course of the meal, the atmosphere becomes more intimate and relaxed. The grain dish proves to be perfectly cooked, with each grain maintaining its individual character while blending harmoniously with the vegetables and seasonings. The protein dish provides a satisfying complement to the lighter grain preparation, and the dessert offers a sweet, fragrant conclusion to the meal. Each dish represents hours of careful preparation, but the end result justifies the time and attention invested in the cooking process. After finishing their meal, the three Vorthons work together to clean the dishes and utensils they have used. This process takes longer than the cleanup from their earlier meals due to the greater number and complexity of the items that need to be washed, but it is approached with the same careful attention to detail as all of their other activities. Each dish is washed thoroughly in warm, soapy water, then rinsed with clean water to remove any soap residue. The dishes are dried with soft cloths and examined carefully to ensure they are completely clean before being returned to their storage locations. The cooking implements receive the same careful attention, with particular care given to removing any food particles that might harbor bacteria or affect the taste of future meals. With the cleaning complete, the common area is restored to its calm, uncluttered state. The table is cleared and wiped clean, the cooking surfaces are sanitized, and all tools and implements are returned to their designated places. This process of restoration is as important to the Vorthons as the meal preparation itself, as it ensures that their living space remains pleasant and organized for future activities. As the evening progresses, the three inhabitants settle into quiet, individual activities appropriate for the end of the day. The lighting continues to dim gradually, creating an atmosphere conducive to relaxation and contemplation.